I took a gig, a recording that I found on Craigslist, and it was this guy named Scotty who he needed like cello on one of his original tracks, and he was paying like $40, and I drove to like an hour to go to his little studio in LA, and it was just me and him, and then we did it and it was great. But then I found out he was Jordan Sparks' music director at the time, and he was like starting his own his own original music. And I only got paid like $40 for it, but that was fine. That was like one of the first recording sessions I did. Through him, I ended up doing more shows with him, and I met a violinist named Chrissy, and she, like 3 years later, she booked me for some Grammy work. So I ended up working for the Grammys, and it all came from that like first like $40 gig, and I could have BS'd it because it's $40, you know what I mean? And I probably spent more on gas going back and forth than actually, than what I earned.
Well, welcome to the podcast today. My name is Jason Tonioli, and I have a special guest, Marc Christian, with us today. Marc is a very, very talented cello player and musician. I know you probably have a whole lot of other talents other than the cello as well, Marc, but you have some phenomenal music, but you have been able to make a living for past several years in the event space. I know you go and you'll play at a lot of weddings, but wanted to bring you on the show today and just kind of share a little bit of your experience. I know some people think, oh, I want to go, perform at concerts and do that, but you're making a very good living as doing smaller gigs that sometimes people would think wasn't, I don't know that everybody thinks about, oh, I can make a living doing smaller shows. And I think it's very cool. So Marc, maybe you're down in Southern California. Tell us a little bit about your journey, how you ended up where you're at, and, how did you end up playing cello, I guess, in the first place? Let's start there.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, first of all. Yeah, I started when I was 9 years old. I'm in my 30s now, so it's been like over 20 years. I grew up playing cello. My older brother played viola. My younger sister played violin. So we did the whole trio thing growing up when we were kids. I'm kind of the only one that stuck with it. I have a lot of siblings, actually. I have 8 siblings. I'm the second oldest, but I'm the only one that continued with it after high school. So I went to college for music. I went to Cal State Northridge up in LA County. I went there for a cello performance, and I did the whole classical training. So that was almost like the original plan when I was younger, just like maybe playing an orchestra or something. But when I was playing in orchestras in college, I realized it just wasn't for me. I wanted to do something more creative. So I started getting into I started playing in bands and stuff. I started playing different singer-songwriters. I started writing my own music. I did that for a few years. I guess my career really started in Los Angeles. So I did the whole LA scene for a while. I did stuff like I did some work for the Grammys. I worked for Her, Resta Duo, DJ Dioro, some Movie Guide Award shows, and stuff like that. And then that was really fun and all, and it was great. But I really want to. Those are all booked through different agencies and contractors. And I really wanted to be more in charge of my schedule, my life, in that sense. So I started my weddings and special events business about 5 years ago, and I kind of took all that experience, I guess, on big stages and doing those bigger gigs out in Los Angeles to like the intimate setting of weddings. So I want to bring all that stage presence and that charisma to people's weddings and really make it a special like atmosphere for them. So I did that. I started about 5 years ago, and it kind of blew up really quickly, and I've just been grinding ever since at it.
Yeah. And so when somebody's coming, I mean, you've got the bridezillas and weddings, I just think of weddings can be really challenging. So how did you, when you do a wedding, what is it you're looking to do? Or do you ask them like, hey, what music do you want to have? I mean, how do you cater that so that there's like just an incredible experience with whatever you're doing for that wedding?
Well, it's all about tailoring it. So I try to stay away from the whole, I'm gonna play background music on the side over there, and it's gonna like, just be some music on the side. I really want to make it intimate for them. So we go over the exact like playlist they want, like the exact artist and vibe they're going for. Usually it's kind of a romantic, elegant vibe, but some people want more of like an R&B set or something. So I'll make that happen. Um, it usually starts off with me playing guest arrival music. So as people are trickling into the venue, I'm front and center of the aisle, and I give them like a show for about 30 to 45 minutes, which is really fun. So it's just a solo cello show, which like no one really sees. So it's that unique experience, and it sets like a really cool atmosphere too. Um, and then all like the ceremony songs as well, which are very specific. Be like we get the timing down to a T. So, we want the bride to like end her entrance down the aisle at the climax of the song. So we time everything out. I send them recordings usually beforehand so they could rehearse with it, and it's very tailored and very personal.
Yeah. So I mean, with the weddings that you're doing, I know some people spend crazy amounts of money. Some people have really tight budgets. I know for musicians, oftentimes we undervalue what we're worth. I know there's a lot of musicians will do gigs on the weekend, and if they can get $100 or $250, that's, work playing a bar or whatever it is. There's just limited money. So how do you take that conversation where I mean, you're charging thousands of dollars to do some of these shows, or as much as 5 or 1,000 or more. How does a musician kind of approach that price conversation with the client essentially to overcome that? Do you think?
Well, I mean, I didn't start off charging like 4 or 5 grand. That's more of a recent thing. I started off charging barely anything, like you said, like a few $100. Mostly because I didn't know like how much people spend on weddings, but I guess over time, and I'm always like pushing to get better at it. I'm bringing like at this point probably like $20,000 worth of music gear to the event and everything. I've done hundreds of weddings at this point, so there comes a certain point where you kind of just feel confident in asking for those prices because if you're doing like a much better job than most other musicians at it, if you really focus on it and really hone in your craft in that specific niche. So yeah, I mean, I gradually raised over time. As it became more in demand, I'll just turn down anything that's like, below a couple grand, really.
Yeah. When you turn those away, I mean, would you say that's one of the harder things to do, is be like, oh my gosh, this person wanted to give me money and I just said no to it? Or how do you come to terms with that? And I guess mentally as a musician,
Well, that's how I used to feel. I used to feel like I had to take everything, but now I have so many inquiries coming. Like basically every day, I have people contact me to play their events. Um, so it's easy to turn down if it's not within the rate I'm asking for. Because
yeah.
I know if I don't do it for theirs, I'm gonna get another event that day.
In the wedding industry, I mean, is to find those gigs, is just getting in front of the right wedding planners so they know you exist? I mean, are you doing like Facebook ads? Are you doing Google ads? What's proven effective for finding those gigs and getting that steady flow of people coming through?
I mean, I know people do it different ways. I haven't used any ads yet. And I plan to eventually when I learn how to like really hone in on that. But I've had success not using any of that. I have social media, but I think we talked about a little before off camera where I'm not even like that big on social media at all. I don't have like I'm not going viral or anything. So I basically just played a lot of weddings. I did it for cheap at first. I built a reputation. I have tons of planners and coordinators vouching for me, in different venues vouching for me. I've become preferred vendor for probably over 20 venues at this point. So there's just
Mm,
a lot of traffic coming in.
that's amazing. And from when you have those referral partners, the wedding planners or the vendors that have the facilities, I mean, what advice would you have for somebody trying to break into that world? What advice would you have for, if you could go back and give yourself advice, what would you tell yourself to do?
I guess I would say it sounds super cliche, but like, but actually do your best, regardless of how big you think this gig is. I mean, I have like a few stories. Like for example, um, I remember when I was in college. I think I was like 19 or something, and I was looking for just any kind of cello work. I took a gig, a recording lead that I found on Craigslist, and it was this guy named Scotty who he needed like cello on one of his original tracks, and he was paying like $40, and I drove to like an hour to go to his little studio in LA, and it was just me and him, and then we did it, and it was great. But then I found out he was he was Jordan Sparks' music director at the time, and he was like starting his own original music. Um, and I only got paid like $40 for it, but that was fine. That was like one of the first recording sessions I did, you know. Um, Through him, I ended up doing more shows with him, and I met a violinist named Chrissy, and she like 3 years later, she booked me for some Grammy work. You know, I was ended up working for the Grammys, and it all came from that like first like $40 gig, and I could have BS'd it because it's $40. You know what I mean? And I probably spent more on gas going back and forth than actually, you know, than what I earned. But yeah. So I guess like the advice I would give is just do your best no matter what, even if it's like even if you're recording for a singer-songwriter that's recording out of the garage. You know what I mean? Just you want to build a reputation of really giving it your all and like and treating everybody respectfully and just doing the best you can, you know,
Yeah.
and it'll lead to good places.
But it's interesting. So I have my recording studio here, and we'll bring lots of people in, and you can you can tell when somebody's, it's really fun to watch somebody when they're in that moment and they're just loving it. But
Yeah,
then there's some gigs or some jobs that it's like, "Oh, I don't really want to be here." But I've seen different musicians where even though you can tell this is not their genre, this is not their thing, but they will give so much attention just to make sure it's great. And it's like leaving a piece of yourself, and it's so apparent even when you listen to the final song, you can almost tell when somebody gave their heart and everything they had to put into it, and then somebody who's just like it was just a gig and job, and they're like, yeah, punch in and punch out. And you wouldn't think you'd be able to hear that, but you totally can. And the other thing I would say is when you can tell somebody's not really into it as much, you don't really want to work with that person again. It's one of those, like, even though it may not have been their favorite thing, gosh, it's, you want to work with people that give everything they've got to the project, no matter whether it was for, the littlest thing that not didn't insignificant type of recording project, or whether it was the, Harry Potter type of video game project, right? So,
yeah, 100%.
um,
Yeah.
well, I'm sure you've got some other stories as you're kind of looking back. If you were sitting in front of a classroom of students at the university that are all kind of pondering, man, do I want to go into music or not? What what's the one or two stories you'd have to kind of teach a lesson to that group of people, help them be more successful in their future music life?
I really believe that everyone has an obligation to serve the world in the way they're meant to. So if you're talented in music, you know, you don't necessarily earn talent. Like talent's a spark, and then you work hard, then you get somewhere, right? But like you don't earn talent; you're kind of born with it, and then you do what you need to do from there, or do what you're supposed to do from there. So I would say like if you're gifted in music and you want to serve people through music, and that you really feel like that's your calling, then go for it, you know. But if it's not, then maybe do something else because honestly, like the music life is it can be very tough, and like most musicians, they could be great musicians, but they end up like making a living off of it, and they I don't know at a certain age, you know, once you start reaching late 20s, early 30s, if you're not making any money off music, and that's what you're doing, like that's all
Right.
you're focused on, it's a scary place, you know. Um, yeah, and it kind of holds the rest of your life back. So yeah, I would say if you really feel a calling towards it, and there's different ways I guess I've determined that through my life. You know, I guess one time when I really like discovered the impact music has on people was it wasn't even like any big shows or anything. Like I remember years ago I was playing for this memory center, and it was like this kind of retirement home for people with dementia and stuff like that. You know. Um, And I went in there like not really knowing what it was. I just know I was just trying to get a paycheck really when I first went in there. But then everyone there was kind of just they were so like they're sitting there quiet, um, not alive at all. I set up and it was the same thing. And then I started playing, and then all the residents there, there's probably like 50 or so. This came to life. Some of them that were in wheelchairs started, struggling to stand up so they could dance and stuff. I had this one guy, this older gentleman at the end. He was like crying to me, and he was saying that one of the songs they played was a song they played at his son's funeral, and it just really he said he needed to hear that, and it was just it was impactful. And like there's and this is a memory loss center, and I went there more than once, and when I came back, it, keep in mind these are people that sometimes can't even remember their family members, but I came back and like, oh, that's the cello guy. It like really stuck with them. So yeah, I mean, experiences like that for me really made me feel that I'm talented in music, and I think it's right for me to work hard and to serve people through music. So as far as advice, yeah, if you find out that's the way you're meant to serve the world, then go for it. You see, as far as like making money off it, you just need to like somehow you need to figure a way to make it a product, package it up in a way that you can monetize it. But I think it starts with that calling more than anything.
I think it's so interesting you share that story. The money, everybody thinks, oh, I need to make money. Like we measure success oftentimes in just the world today with financial, dollar signs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell as you're sharing that story about the memory care center that those comments from somebody who frankly probably maybe not even have known their name that day, you may like the music connected with them, and then they were able to connect with you on that emotional level. And I think
Hmm.
there's, however somebody wants to describe it, I think there's that spiritual connection somehow that when we serve others and we kind of just do it out of the goodness of serving and making a difference in the world. Those types of moments tend to stick with us more than any paycheck. Maybe you had $100,000 gig one. I think that moment you had with that old person that may not have known their name probably means more to you than any paycheck you've probably even gotten, and you probably got
Yeah,
several of those.
exactly. I'm not even sure if I even got paid for that. I'm pretty sure like I never received a check. It was only like a couple $100 anyways. But yeah, that's something that stuck with me. Like, and that was years ago. And I still think about it. So and I try to keep that in mind whenever I'm playing, because I don't think of weddings or any type of event as necessarily like small gigs, because there's because like I said, that memory care center, that was like maybe the smallest of a gig you could do, but it was one of the most meaningful for me. And I don't know. I mean, I've played on big stages, and it's fun and everything. There's a lot of hype around it. But even playing for someone's wedding, man, it's. I mean, I remember when I got married. That was like one of the most. That was probably still my favorite day of my life. So being a part of that and elevating someone's day like that, it means something. I don't care if it's on a big stage or not. Like I really think it's important to do, and it's meaningful work.
Yeah. But I think music in a lot of ways, I mean, you think about movies and movies have soundtracks, and frankly, the soundtrack with the music during that movie makes, I mean, without a soundtrack, it just doesn't have that emotional thing. And the fact that we as musicians, we just remember we're literally the soundtrack to some of those most meaningful moments. I mean, even if it was somebody going through a hard thing, I with my music, I play piano and there's and I have a lot like 20 books, and I get people all the time that email me and they go play piano with my music books at the hospitals. And if anybody's ever been in a hospital, you realize, some of those moments you have in those hospitals are some of the most difficult, stress-inducing, hardest days of somebody's life, or even when, I mean, I just this last year I was in the hospital with my son who had surgery, and he's asleep, and I'm there, but you just feel vulnerable and helpless in a lot of ways. And I think, having music around in those type of moments, the soundtrack literally sticks with you to, like, for your life. Like, you probably remember, you know, the song you were listening to when, if you lost a loved one, or if when you asked your spouse to marry you, or, there's just these little moments in the soundtracks we can provide. And, whether it be on the radio or whether it's live, performance with a cello or a piano, I don't think we realize as musicians how important those moments really are to, literally like ingrain in somebody's brain for the rest of their lives. They will always remember that moment and the
Right.
sounds that.
No, 100%. I mean, I think, like, we start out knowing that, and that's why we get into it, but then, if you choose music as a career path, you become so money focused because you need it to survive, right? That you start forgetting that. But then, like, for me, there's always, like, those moments that make me remember, like, what the real power of music is for. It's not for applause. It's like there's nothing wrong, like, being on big stages, and you can make a big impact that way for sure. But yeah, like I was saying before, there's like small events and everything, with quote unquote small events. Those aren't small to me at all. Those are like the special event space. You're playing for weddings, the first time someone's getting married, um, even like baby showers. Like, if someone's like having their first kid, funeral sometimes, like the death of someone's parent or loved one. It's like these are they're called special events because they're the most special events of people's lives, and so it does mean a lot to be there for people in that way.
Yeah. No, I think funerals, fortunately or unfortunately, my music gets played at a lot of funerals, and some I mean, but you when you start realizing, "Oh my gosh, that was so impactful to somebody," or they tell you, "That made all the difference," and you talk about getting that applause, and, there's times where absolutely you wanna jump out of your seat and clap and shout for joy, whatever you wanna call that, but there's other moments where I've had with music where, like, you just don't n nobody even says a word. It's just, you got tears flowing, from
Yeah,
people, and, um I think of my dad's it's been more than a decade ago my dad passed away, but I can still, he was a firefighter, and we literally had, like 80 or 90 firefighters lining both sides while we were pushing the casket out, and there was, as we were getting to the cemetery, there was a bagpipe player there, and, I still can't hear bagpipes and not get shook up.
yeah, yeah. No. Yeah,
I think it's just one of those. I think as musicians, measuring success with, I mean, yes, we need to make a living, but I think, if we can, step back and measure that success with the emotional touching of people, and really serving, there's so many people. I look at all these, people that go and serve at the hospitals and play piano, like they don't get paid anything, but the fact that, they're there serving, they're probably getting more out of it than the people that they're playing for in a lot of ways.
yeah, yeah, I think so. But also, I mean, I think there's also a misconception where people think if I'm doing these kinds of events, like the special event space, that like it's very fulfilling to your soul, but like not to your bank account. Like it could be both, and like like the more you put into it, and the more you make yourself stand out in that space, and really understand that you and really understand service to your clients, like you will be financially successful. I mean, um, I mean, I did a lot of stuff with music. This is the only thing that got me to like six figures. Is this special event space, and I know people making 500,000 plus doing this. So it's not. You don't have to be broke doing it at all.
Yeah.
It could be fulfilling, and you could make a lot of money. So I don't know. There's both.
So I'm curious if you were, as you think about success. So the podcast is called The Successful Musicians. What would you define as success for a musician now? I mean, because if you rewind back when you were coming out of college and you're like, oh, I got to make money. I mean, how do you're a seasoned musician now. You found success financially, but what would you define success as, now that you're more seasoned?
I would say I would say just truly being in service of people. I mean, when I first started music and playing in front of people, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was more to I don't know, feel validated or seen or something. You get a lot of compliments performing in front of people, and there's just a lot of praise in it. Even like small stuff, small shows, to big shows, you still get a lot of compliments and praise, and it feels good. And I realized that was my main motivator for like years. I didn't realize it, but I also didn't like make money off it because I didn't understand the service part of it. So I think yeah, for me, success would be both financial and being in service to people.
Yeah,
And financial because if your finances are in order, you eventually you're gonna have to have a job as well, right? And I've seen it happen so many times where there's these really great musicians, and they're killing it at music, but they have to have like a side job because they can't support themselves with just music. And eventually, not all the time, but most of the time, the job wins, because like they need a paycheck, and your time's just split too much. So
yeah,
you can't work a full-time job and like just focus on music on the weekends. It's tough. So I would say both, like being able um to make a good living and serve people and make an impact on the world through your music.
yeah. Like I've heard some people talk about, you have the success, but um, being fulfilled is almost that more important word that as I've kind of studied it. And, when you talk about service, I feel like I've always felt like my energy's been filled back up, for
Yeah,
sure when I serve others. I've never thought of it how service really corresponds to the fulfillment side of things, whether it's mentoring or coaching or teaching somebody. People always talk about how they've they did the thing, but then when they helped other people learn the thing or do the thing, was where they found that fulfillment. And I think the serving, really in a lot of ways, I think serving others is where that filling up of finding that your own cup is filled up because of that, and you feel much better about everything you're doing when that's there.
yeah. I think that's the only way for fulfillment. Actually, I don't think you'd be fulfilled without that. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's the main focus.
Yeah, no, this has been great. Gosh, we're about out of time. You've got some amazing music online. Way more people should be listening to your stuff. I mean, I'm thrilled you found such success in the wedding business. But I think if people find your music online or in the streaming, man, they're gonna fall in love with you. Where should people go check out online to kind of learn who you are and check out your music?
I guess I'm most active on Instagram. So it's my Instagram handle is markchristian.cello. It's Mark with a C. So Instagram, and I post on YouTube and TikTok as well, but Instagram's like where I post mostly everything. And you'll see a lot of music stuff and some of my life outside of music. I have like tons of pets and stuff, pets and all that. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. If they want to hire you to go play a cello gig, or they're getting married and they're like, man, I got to have this cello guy come, where should they find you there?
Same thing, Instagram or my website. I have an inquiry form there. So my website is markchristiancello.com.
.com. Awesome. Well, Mark, thank you so much for taking some time. I always feel like I get more out of these interviews maybe than anybody, but I think you had some really profound, deep stuff today. So thank you for serving and kind of helping. You helped me kind of step back and be like, wow, that's what it's all about. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Awesome. Hey, it's Jason here, and I hope you've gotten a lot of value out of this episode. Be sure to check out our show notes to learn more about our guest today, and if you'd like to support our podcast, there's a few things that you can do to help us grow. First, if you hit subscribe, it will help ensure that you don't miss a future episode. Second, if you'll share it with your friends on social media or send it via email or message, it helps us spread the word as well. And third, if you'll leave an honest review, it really helps with the algorithms so that other people can find our podcast. Finding success and fulfillment in the music industry is possible, and I look forward to seeing you on our next episode.